So rule number 4, unlike this car, we need to avoid drift in our meetings. So what is that problem? What does that look like? So drift in the meeting is basically you've got a purpose. Hopefully you followed rule number 1, right? Which is to define the meeting purpose and so forth. And drift is when you veer off, right? You end up somewhere where you didn't intend, right? And so an example for me, or that I recently experienced, I was in a faculty meeting, which for those of you who have had the opportunity to be in a faculty meeting, you know this is not that uncommon. We were at the meeting, and the first item on the agenda was workload and contracts, which is an important thing for faculty, and we tend to have lots of feelings about that. Well, that was also ended up being the last item on the agenda we got to. And that wasn't because the whole conversation for the next hour actually focused on workload and contracts. It was because everybody seemed to have a beef with certain aspects of these things, but then they would go off for a little while, and then we'd meander back. So there was a lot of drifting that would happen during the meeting because of that. And it was very frustrating for not only the person who was trying to lead the meeting ineffectively, but also for the people who had other things on the agenda that they were hoping to accomplish, that they were hoping to discuss, hoping to get answers around, hoping to then be able to then move forward with their own work in these other areas. And so the drift ended up, getting people stuck and unable to move forward, sort of like this car. So what does science say about this? Well, there's actually quite a bit of science on process in meetings, because really the drift is, where is it happening? It's not happening before the meeting, and it's not really happening after the meeting. It's happening in the meeting. It's those moments when, Joe or Elise are running their mouth on a particular thing that they're concerned about, or that they're thinking about, or that they talk about every single time you have a meeting, whether you want them to or not. And so what the science has told us is that there are a few things that can be done. So one of the things that we do in meeting science is that we record meetings, video record them, okay? And then we actually code every single utterance in the meeting. So if I say, that goes to a code. That's an agreement code, right? If I share some piece of information that, that it might be useful for the meeting to progress, that's knowledge that I'm sharing. And so there's codes for every single thing that's said. As we do that, there's a category of codes called procedural communication, right? The interesting thing about procedural communication, it's really about making sure the meeting is going in the direction that is intended. Okay? It's following the agenda, it's getting people back on the same page, it's those sorts of behaviors, right? And so what we found is that meetings that are satisfying, effective, that accomplish the goals they have a larger proportion of procedural communication than those that don't. And so for that faculty meeting, there was no procedural communication. Okay. Once we went off into our drift, we just hung out there for the rest of the time, and finally people started to get up and leave because they had to go somewhere else. Had anyone, been able to or willing to, probably the leader in this case because of the strong hierarchical differences between people, had engaged in procedural communication, it may and could have very much pulled out of the drift and gotten back on track. The other thing to kind of keep in mind is that if you do that and you get into your agenda effectively, you may have moments of flow. Okay? And flow is when you get into a situation and you're engaging in the activity and you're doing things together, and time seems to just pass without even being aware of it. If you've ever played sports, maybe in a meeting you've experienced this, maybe not, but it's a wonderful experience. It usually results in good decision making and opportunities. And the key is to embrace those moments. Okay? Not allow the Joes in the room to run off in the wrong direction and get the meeting off topic, because those moments are not very common, but when they do happen, they usually result in great outcomes.